in other words, all of his decisions were based on his expectation that Hillary would be president. Again, he's putting politics in here, Terry, in terms of dictating his decision-making when it relates to the rule of law.
Well, certainly that's exactly what he's doing, and he goes out of his way to tell us he was avoiding politics, and yet everything he says illustrates, as that IG report illustrates, that there was politics everywhere in this decision. Look, the Clinton email case wasn't all that complicated. To this day, we still do not have an answer to a basic question. Who made the decision never to start off with a federal grand jury in that case? Had we had that, we would not be sitting here talking today. This case was taken by people in Washington, D.C. It was controlled, and it was going to have a result that they wanted. Everybody who's ever touched these kinds of cases, everybody who's ever worked inside that building, and everyone who's ever been on that 7th floor knows exactly what was going on. And that's why I think so many people are so upset. I agree that many Americans, this is just not going to matter. However, it matters very much to those people inside that building and to ultimately what happens with the rule of law in America.
That's right.
This is a significant, serious issue.
Meanwhile, Ed, you know, Jim Comey talks about these memos that he took every time he had a meeting with Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And then he passes those memos on to his friend, the professor, and then on to the New York Times. But Congress hasn't seen the memos. So I have the letter here that was sent to Rod Rosenstein from Devin Nunes, Bob Goodlatte, and Trey Gowdy. Lawmakers are calling for the Justice Department to release the unredacted memos from Jim Comey. Here's what House Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte told me yesterday about this. This is the deadline today.
We're looking to receive the unredacted Comey memos so that we have the opportunity to see what Mr. Comey is telling the people in his book compared to what is occurring in terms of his recounting of his meetings with the president earlier last year.
Look, Ed, I mean, they've been trying to get memos and notes now for a year. The letter to Rod Rosenstein, which was issued last week on Friday, puts today the deadline. Do you think they're going to get the Comey memos?
I would hope they would. But again, I want to come back to, as we talk about this, on what does this mean for the politics of the off-year election. Going back to the survey numbers you were looking at earlier today, is that the president's job approval has improved. It has improved not because of issues like this and the back and forth. It's improved because of his focus on the economy, on jobs, and on taxes. And actually having a program. There is a large chunk, about 10, 11% of voters who approve of the president on the job he's doing, but are very uncomfortable with his persona. If the focus is on policy, they will stick with him. If they don't, he'll slide back down into the 30s.
Yeah.
There's another 10% that don't approve of the president but like his policies. And the more they hear about those policies on the economy, on jobs and taxes, that's when he starts inching up and over 50% approval, which is key for the voters in this election. And that's where I get concerned about this issue, that too much focus here brings out the persona and not the policy focus that the president needs to have with the bulk of the voters out there.
At a time, Terry, that, you know, these three chairmen of these congressional committees are asking for these Comey memos with a deadline of today. But let's face it, Bob Goodlatte subpoenaed the 1.2 million documents from the FBI around these investigations and he's only received, what, 3,000 or 4,000 documents. So what are they hiding? Why can't they just send these memos, particularly the Comey memos, since already the New York Times had them and so did his friend, the professor?
Well, apparently everybody can have them, but the people who need to have them, and we need to have answers. And I think that when you look at that IG report, I'd like to go back to one other thing. Just keep in mind that it took the general counsel on a phone call to tell the director that McCabe shouldn't be on this phone call with us because of his conflict in this matter. That took a lot of courage and a lot of guts to say that, even though he was the general counsel and that was his job. And the person who I think is a big hero here, and we'll lose him, and we'll never talk about this again if I don't bring it up now, but there was a grade 14 agent who was working in the Office of Professional Responsibility who who went back to McCabe the second time because his interview clearly wasn't showing a candor. And the agent, when he was told by McCabe, well, I just got a few things wrong, the agent looked at him and said, do you know how much work we've put into this since the last time we spoke to you and how much we tried to sort all this out? And now you're saying you don't think that was clear? I mean, this shows what was going on at the top of the FBI, and it shows the kind of conflict it was putting employees in. And one final point, McCabe got on the phone and called the ADIC of New York, the Assistant Director of New York and the Assistant Director of Washington Field, and was blaming them for those leaks when all that time he knew it was him. I mean, do you realize what that does to an office? Those men and women are out there on the front line of trying to make a real difference. And all he was trying to do is cover his butt. I'm fed up with looking at this kind of stuff. It all went on under Comey's nose.
Wow.
And I'm glad he's gone.
And you do have to say one thing about and I know several of the federal agents, FBI agents that are out there. As soon as that report came out, even without them knowing what was in it, they know how detailed and how specific they are. So they believe the report. They believe there was something there. So I think in terms of the feelings inside the agency, they actually were fairly proud that that report came out and stuck with it.
Right. Well, they certainly were also upset at leadership, though, in terms of taking sides and tipping the scales. Turchie, Ed Goeas, good to see you both, gentlemen. Thank you.